Okay, so welcome, ma'am, and hopefully we have some more people join us as the meeting starts going. But we just want to thank you for joining us. We will be starting off this month with a Black History Month introduction. We want to kick this month off right, and so we'll be going into discussion about what the history of Black History Month is, some facts, and then we want to feature Amanda Gorman, who is a poet that was selected to read at the inauguration. So before we go into that, I will go ahead and introduce Brian, our treasurer for the D&I Council. He's going to go ahead into an intro regarding Black History Month. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Anna. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this Black History Month info, just to give you a breakdown of some of the history, how it started, and where it's going now. And then we're going to go into some fun facts about some of our Black leaders in the past and present who have made some incredible inventions to help move us as Americans and the world forward, to say the least. So Black History Month.
I'm sorry, next slide, Reed.
Black History Month was founded by Carter G. Woodson and finds its roots in 1915, where the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History sought to teach young African Americans about their heritage and achievements during a time where they weren't being taught enough about them, let alone made aware of them. Out of the association grew Negro History Week in 1926, but with so many accomplishments, it was hard to keep the celebrations confined to just 1 week. And in 1940s, it began to expand. In 1976, on the 50th anniversary of Negro History Week, Black History Month, also American History Month, finally made its debut. Black History Month not only celebrates the achievements of the Black community, but signifies their contributions to American life and the impact that these accomplishments made and continue to make, not only for Black people, but many others where barriers exist. The more we celebrate and tell about Black stories and accomplishments, the more we can be seen as a complex human beings who deserve chances, who deserve recognition, and who deserve care and compassion. The achievements of Black people were happening during times in which Black Americans were significantly suppressed during slavery, post-emancipation, proclamation, during segregation, and when there were white-only schools, colleges, and more. During lynchings, during the civil rights era, and when they were beaten in the streets for marching, murdered without cause, and stripped of basic human rights, and much more. But still, Black Americans kept achieving and excelling and were altruistic enough to strive to make life better for not only themselves, but all Americans. A lot of accomplishments range from discovering new ways to heal people, medicine, and new techniques, winning in the American Olympics and sports, and inventing everyday items. Just to give a final piece of perspective, here's a small list of inventions that Black Americans gave us. So we have Garrett Augustus Morgan. He invented the 3-position traffic light signal, automated elevator doors, and the gas mask. Have Albert Brown, home security system utilizing television surveillance. We have Philip B. Downing, invented the mailbox. John Albert Burr patented the rotary blade lawnmower. Linda D. Newman patented a new and improved hairbrush in 1898 and window cleaner. Henry Thomas Sampson co-invented the gamma electric cell used to develop today's cell phones. Frederick Jones invented the first portable air conditioning unit. Alice H. Parker, African-American inventor famous for her patented system of central heating using natural gas. Alexander P. Ashburn patented coconut oils, foods, and scented products in 1880. Shirley Ann Jackson, caller ID and touch tone dialing. Otis Boynton, pacemaker for the heart. Marion Croak, she actually invented VoIP, telephones we use every day, voice over IP. And lastly, Mark Dean was part of the team that developed the ISA bus, and he led the design team for making 1 gigahertz computer processor chip. He holds 3 of 9 PC patents for being the co-creator of IBM personal computers released in 1981. That's it. Amazing stuff.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. As you guys can see, based off what he said and looking at the Black History Month facts, so African Americans just in general have made huge impacts and contributions to our society as a whole, to our nation. And the reason we chose the next bit that we're going to do, the next feature, is because it's just a way of highlighting one of the contributions that we've been given as a society, as a civilization, as civilized people, as just human beings in general, and how African Americans impact us on a daily basis. And some of that will be actually highlighted in Amanda Gorman's poem, and some of the statements that she makes. So we thought that, of course, with Black History Month kicking off here this week, we wanted to find something that was relevant to today, and how much more relevant can you get than something that just occurred as recent as January 20th. So the next part of this is we want to talk about Amanda Gorman, who she is, and her impact on us as, our generation, her own generation. She is a few years younger than us. And then also how important enough she was that she was selected to read a poem at the inauguration for President Joe Biden. Next slide. So here, who's Amanda Gorman? I don't know if those of you that are in with us have heard of her. If not, you will know her as the youngest or first ever Youth Poet Laureate selected. What that means is that it's a title given to someone who demonstrates, a young person in particular, demonstrates skills in the arts, specifically in poetry, spoken word. But she also has to be doing more than just poetry. She's an activist. She's been known as an activist for many years. She's a strong leader. She's committed to social justice. And so she was selected back in 2017. At the time, she was 19, I believe. She's currently 23. Little known facts about her: she is a twin. Her sister Gabrielle is also an activist. Something about her that tells you how resilient this person is: she has an auditory processing disorder, which is kind of amazing considering how talented she is with speech. But she is hypersensitive to sound. APD is a disability which does affect the person directly in the ability to understand speech. So when she was younger, it actually affected her directly in her own speech impediment as a child. However, she overcame that, and she is who we know her to be today. She was appointed as a youth delegate for the United Nations at the age of 16. At the age of 19, she already stated that she will run for president in 2036. She recently graduated with her bachelor's from Harvard in 2020. As we discussed, in 2021, she was selected to read at the inauguration of President Joe Biden, which marked her to be the youngest person who ever read at the US presidential inauguration. And then coming up here on February 7th, I believe it's the Super Bowl, she's actually going to be reciting a poem there. So all in all, this young lady has done more with her life than I have done in 37 years that I've been living. So I absolutely admire her. I think she's beautiful. And the first time I was introduced to her was at the inauguration. And I kind of shocked to see that that's all I knew of her at the time. And when I heard that poem, I was completely floored and hopeful for our future, to know that our youth are that talented. And, she kind of paints a really bright future ahead for us. So really happy to have been introduced to her that way. So in the next, we will actually listen to the poem that she recited at the inauguration.
Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it in its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild reconcile and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
We'll go into the conversation. In the meantime, while you are on, if you can answer this question, if you go on slido.com, or if you just happen to have the app, you can use the app there. But while we're discussing, if you can answer this question, this is kind of goes along with some of the things she was saying in the poem. And we'll go over that, how exactly, because her words are very beautiful. But we just kind of want to get a gauge of this specific question. But for those of you that, I don't know if you had heard it before, or if this is your first time hearing, was there any part of the poem that you, that stood out for you specifically? And anybody can join in this conversation, to include council members.
Hey, while people are doing the poll, I will say that she almost makes me weep when she talks about transforming. Gosh, I have such a bad memory, but something to might, and change this to that and this to that, and we can change our future. She's more eloquent than I am, but that slays me. She's essentially a baby, and she's
Right.
speaking like Martin Luther King Jr. Gosh,
yeah, she stated, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy. Yes. Yeah, and change our children's birthright. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Ugh.
Yeah, so I will tell you, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought you were finished.
I'm done.
Oh, so I think for me, there was a particular line that that to me, I felt like she was specifically discussing the events that occurred the week, I think it was the day, the week before, with the insurrection that occurred. I don't know if anybody got any of that sense within the poem itself, but there was a particular couple sentences that to me, I felt like she was basically putting out there that she may have added into the poem after this occurred, the insurrection or the Capitol Hill attacks. But it states, it's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. So those, to me, I felt like she was, and you can use those lines to say that we were discussing, that she was discussing, you know, the time period when slavery was legal, and you can say that about certain other time periods. But I feel like because of what happened a couple of weeks prior to the actual inauguration, like it was so, for her to add that, she could have very easily just said, I'm going to be a poet and make this very beautiful and make everything seem like everything's great within our country and in our nation, and that we're, you know, in a time and place that democracy is alive and well, and make it just paint a picture of just perfection, and that our country is ahead and better suited than other countries. But I feel like she put that in there and just kind of highlighted what the very actions that occurred a couple of weeks prior to that, and then what has been an issue going on for centuries, in that we are so adamant on being American and American pride and, you know, hoorah, America, USA, USA, USA. But we want to almost turn a blind eye to how we got here as a nation and everything that it took to get here. All the backs that were stepped on, all the people that just kind of suffered in order for our nation to become where it is today. And I feel like just in those lines alone, she was highlighting that and reminding people like, hey, we are here not because of the forefathers signed a document, but because of all the people that were forced to come here, you know, without volunteering. They were made to come here on ships. This nation is where we are because of the diversity that we have. And then, hey, by the way, let's not pretend that what happened a couple of weeks ago didn't occur just because, you know, we are having a very nice ceremony at this moment. So like I heard those words, and that's all I kept picturing her trying to convey to us as the audience. Over to anybody else
Well
that wants to
said.
share.
Well said, for sure. Do you want me to keep the poll up as we continue discussing? Or
Yeah, does anybody else want to share? Yeah, we can leave it up. And if you want to share, feel free to use your camera, have your camera up. I meant to pull mine up, but I didn't, I'm sorry. But yeah, feel free to join the conversation. Anyone?
The only thing I had was the end of that. I don't remember the last line specifically, but thing about being brave enough to
We're only
just talking
brave
about,
enough to see it.
right. Obviously, it's probably because, like Reese said, my memory's not the greatest, and I'm not as elegant of a speaker as she is for me to think about all those words that she used. So I kind of focused on the ending of it, which is usually some of the most powerful, you know, parts of speeches or poems, or the beginning and endings. So just talking about bravery overall, and just people not being afraid to enact change and step out of their comfort zone and not be set in their ways from, you know, ancestry or forefathers, you know, and just trying to enact change, you know, and just not be afraid to do that. I kind of keyed on to that portion of the speech.
Hey, sir, I just want to piggyback on what you just said. It's Sir McCarty here. The last part of that poem is just, like you said, it's just so powerful, because the words of when she says, when days come, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, where there is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it, and if we're brave enough to be it. It just makes me think personally, like, you know, it's easy to say, hey, I don't see it. I don't see the change. I don't see the change, but it's hard to say, I'm not the change. And that makes me think of that. Instead of just asking, actually be what you ask. If you don't see something, be it. So that way it's kind of like an inspiration to get other people started and say, you know what? I didn't see it, but I am what I wanted to see. So that way, you know, if 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, then the number just multiplies. And like, I'm with you with the end of that beautiful poem. It just makes you just feel like empowered in a sense. Like, hey,
right.
If you don't see it, you can do it.
absolutely. I want to triple piggyback on that. It's to be the change you wish to see, right? Like, if you realize there's a problem, then your next thought should be, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? There usually is no middle. And what people like to do, I think, is put themselves in the middle, like, well, I'm not causing it, therefore I'm not bad. And people see this good person, bad person. It's like, it really has nothing to do with that. It's do you try to correct wrongs, or do you act like they're not there, or do you promote them? Like, there's really just that area, right? So it just takes one. There is socially, what's it called? Social science fact. You could look it up everywhere about, it just takes one person, be it to respond to a person lying from an accident, to starting social change, right? It's kind of like being a spark of a match. It's beautiful when it happens for good, and it's horrifying when it happens for, I don't want to say good and bad, because I just said that's not what people are, but in events, I guess it can go either way, right? So very well said, all.
Okay, let's go ahead to go to the next slide. Or I'm sorry, I should have asked first. Does anybody else want to chime in on anything? So the reason we put that poll up was because we thought it was important that when you're looking at the inauguration and you have a Black and South Asian woman at that as vice president, you have cabinet members that are just from all roles. You have some, you have Pete Buttigieg, which is the first gay member in the cabinet. You have what's his name? Austin Lloyd, who's now the, I forget his position, but he's one of our first Black, somebody, if you know who I'm talking about.
Secretary of Defense, General.
Thank you, Secretary. Yeah. There's so many positions that I'm just like, they're all.
That's right.
But you have the first Black Secretary of Defense. You have, and I feel like when they brought Amanda to do this poem, like she's my friend and I'm calling her by her first name here. I felt like it was just like another great way of showing that I feel like you have to almost force people to see, hey, we are going to place more people of diversity in these positions. And then we're going to also add people of diversity and multicultures as part of our, American traditions that normally were only white men that held these positions, only white men that were part of these major, glorious, and super elaborate ceremonies. And so when they put Amanda up there, and then you have all these members in the cabinet that are of different races, nationalities, orientations, like I feel like I'm so happy for it. I'm just like, yes, finally. And then I hear somebody say like, well, they're just doing this is just a reaction to all that's occurred in the past couple of years. And part of me is like, so what? If anything, we should have had this type of representation years ago, because at the end of the day, it's not 100% white male country. We still have a percentage that are minorities in categories and in races. So yeah, maybe we do have to place purposefully these members in these positions and purposefully use people of color to celebrate in the traditions like the poem and like the songs and those who play in the band and just have it purposefully out there for it to be in people's faces. Because I feel like if we don't, and you guys feel free to agree with me, I feel like if we don't do that, then we're just, as a country, we're just acknowledging that we're okay with it being solely one faceted nation, if that makes sense. And so that's why we put this poll up.
Sorry, I think I have a delay, my bad. But I participated in a debate at the end of last year with my university. It was actually a faculty only debate, but I was invited, so I was pretty honored to participate. And it was on, they were trying to promote diversity and inclusion, and the subject was affirmative action. And
thank you, that's the word I was trying to think of.
Yeah, I thought so. I was very aware that the other faculty that were arguing against it didn't believe, right? They had to argue, we had to pick a side. It was a debate. And the best debaters can argue for something they don't believe in, right? But however, I was not only the youngest by far, but the only student. So it was interesting how when I was debating, I could speak from the heart because I was debating pro, and I do believe it. So it's very easy, right? But when one of the when my partner, who's another professor, he started spouting off facts that he had looked up on the fact that white males in numbers are not any way a majority in number in this country. We are a very mixed country, and we could deliberate as to why, right, for forever. But we were talking about how, what is our country going to look like in 2 or 3 generations? For sure, white males will be in a minority as far as numbers go. And so what was interesting was what the other guy brought up. He goes, oh, so then will affirmative action be applied to them, because they'll technically be a minority. And being the resident English major, I had to speak up and be like, well, if you're going to change the meaning of minority, that changes the discussion, right? As far as power, money, and influence, they're not a minority. And that is the very problem. When you have, such a small percent of people running such a big country, despite their small numbers, that can only be attributed to power, money, and influence. So they won't be, get affirmative action rights because they have all the money, power, and influence, right? And so it was just interesting to hear. That was a genuine question he brought up that came out of nowhere.
You answered that very well, because I don't think I would have had the same response. So I applaud you for your educated answer on that.
I was actually privately applauded, during the Zoom by people who are like, oh my God, they are making me so angry. I can't believe you're holding yourself together so well. And I do pride myself on holding my emotions well, but I was shocked because I think he meant that, right? Like, I knew he didn't really believe affirmative action was bad, but that question, I believe, came from his heart. And at the end, I was kind of discouraged that even though someone, I think, can on the surface feel a certain way, when we got really debating, it was like the they and the them started coming out, and my blood was kind of boiling. But it just goes to show that people think, well, I'm not a bad person, I'm not a racist. But then they say like super racist things, ignorantly for sure, right? I think it's not on purpose, it's not malicious, but that's how deep this problem goes, in my opinion, in our country. And I think Amanda Gorman, with her 20-year-old self, whatever, I just admire her so much for not only having the wisdom to create such beautiful verbiage, but to be able to convey a message on so many levels, right? We could pick that poem apart for a college level class, right? And how, I don't know, I just lost my train of thought, but that was the best response I could give. And I made my point. If y'all are wondering, yes, we did win the debate. We stomped them. So should we move on?
Who else do we have on here? Does anybody else want to share, like, whether their thoughts on the poem, whether their thoughts regarding the inauguration, this question, like just any portion here from anyone we may have not heard from yet?
I know people aren't that shy. They're probably steeped in other things. I'm okay with moving on if you are. People can jump in whenever.
Yeah,
we got 20 minutes left.
Yeah, so this conversation itself I feel like I can talk about it. Just anything regarding diversity, I feel like I can talk on forever. But this is something that I feel like is stuff that not necessarily the poem is necessarily burning in people's minds, but just how the poem came about and why. I was just reading some notes in regards to the poem itself and how Amanda Gorman did in fact actually finished it the night after the Capitol attack, and so she had came to a stopping point, but when the attack occurred, she realized she's got to add a little bit more in there, and her intention was not to necessarily highlight the bad, but she wanted to highlight, she wanted the audience to basically to use her words to envision a way in which our country can still come together and still heal. So we have somebody that's very young who's seen our country the way, basically since the day she was born, she's seen terrible things happen, but she still sees a light at the end of the tunnel, and she's trying to become be in that forefront to push that light towards, obviously people her own age and those that surround her age, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that are going to be running our country, whether locally or nationally. So it's kind of to me, it's kind of hopeful, because I know for me, the past few years, I've been seeing, in my opinion, it's been kind of rough to see how things have been going on. And so I talk to my friends that are African American and getting their perspective, and I know it hurts on a deeper rooted level for them. So it's hard not to get into the frustration and get into the just the constantly holding on to just the bad parts and not focusing on how do we move on and how do we do better and how do we come together, and even come together with people that we feel, know, and have outright shown that they are completely against what we are trying to do to build this country on a better playing field. So I thought we all felt that those of us on the council wanted to highlight this, because I think we're in a place that we want to, even ourselves within the council, want to highlight how do we not only move on, because I don't want us to move on to where we forget, but we move on so that what we're moving forward in trying to build a better Air Force, do better within our wings, and try to, we don't want it to be where it's just bad discussions. We want to have the discussions in order to be able to improve. And so she is a great example of that. And I think that was a great reason why we wanted to highlight her, feature her for Black History Month intro, as well as, just the difficult topics or discussions that we're having, that we can have them, but still look for a way to improve on what we are trying to bring not only our country, but our own units and then our own selves to become. So I thank you guys for listening in, and we're gonna go ahead and next discuss just highlight some events that are gonna be happening here in the month for Black History Month specifically.
I wanted to just round that off too. You are more eloquent than you give yourself credit for. I wanted to highlight too that I think it's important. It's not important, I guess. I love that she was okay with it being public knowledge that she has a disability, not only a disability, but one that affects speech and hearing. And then she gets up and essentially gives a perfect speech in front of one of the biggest, if not the biggest audience in the world of the year, every 4 years. Not only is that not easy to do, but as also a person with a disability that's, invisible and you don't know I have it unless I tell you, kind of thing. It gives hope in that regard too, right? So I think she is a perfect picture of what America could be if folks would kind of look outside themselves. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and highlight, we are featuring a highlight of the 637 Training Group, also known as Defense Language Institute English Language Center, or DLI. They have a team, they have a group council, DNI council, and they put together a whole calendar for Black History Month. And it has daily, this calendar is amazing, by the way. I'm going to put the link in the chat. They have daily did you know facts for every single day of the month. They also have special DLI events. For example, Friday, they have the kickoff event, and I can't remember the names of the gentlemen, but it's a local San Antonio not a production group. I'm sorry, my words are just all jacked up today. They promote equality and inclusion, and they create films, they do guest speaking and so. And they are featured guest speakers for that event. It's going to be awesome. And then, of course, for the entire month, they have events going on nationwide, and these are actually active links. So once I put the link to this calendar in the chat, you'll be able to save it. It's actually Google Slides. So it's live and update it whenever some new event comes along. We just added one. Today, actually. So, and here's just a little snapshot of the whole month. So the events are very varied. Some of them are live cooking classes. Some of them you can learn how to make soul food. Some of them are special PBS features. This one right here, 28 Days of Black History Makers. They have a video on a new person every single day. It's just a little kind of vignette, not too long. Really, I encourage you to, support any of these. Mae Jemison, she's awesome. So that's actually happening a little bit later today. So, just wanted to highlight what different this group is doing, but that's one of the things that we plan to do is highlight things that different groups are doing. And, kind of share ideas around the wing and JBSA, but also just share the knowledge, right? Share the awareness. It's not just because it's Black History Month, that's just what it happens to be, right? Next month is Women's History Month. Like each month there's some group that is wonderful in their diversity and that we can highlight and just really, I don't know, to me, I love enjoying our differences. So, and learning about them, by the way. So anyway, I don't like to ramble. I just wanted to share that, get my mouse right, and then let you know that these events are public. Obviously, not only the nationwide ones, but the DLI ones are open to anyone as well. And then, whatever you can attend, go ahead and attend. But either way, a lot of this stuff is stuff you could do with family as well. So there we go. The last thing is sneak peek for the third week of the month. Actually, is going to be a Guess Who challenge. I think this is going to be pretty fun. It's going to be 4 different African Americans each day, and the person that kind of guesses the most gets bragging rights for winning, I guess. But a lot of kids are homeschooling right now. This is something that people could even incorporate in with their kids if they wanted, just a fun activity. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this link in the chat for y'all. I think I don't have anything else to say. Any questions or anything? Oh, here we have some questions. Do you want me to just go ahead and answer these, Sergeant Silva?
Yep, absolutely.
How do you get in touch with us? Good question. That's going to be on our last slide. We do have an email and we have a Facebook. If you search, what is it, 37th Training Wing Diversity and Inclusion, I believe. If you put that in, you'll find it pretty quickly. And yep, anyone can attend these events. So there you go.
I will say we just had a distro email created for us on Outlook. So if you are on your work email, you can find us at the 37th TRW/diversity, if I'm not mistaken. There it is.
That's correct.
Yeah. So if you do a global search, you can find us that way, or you have it right here, 37trw.diversity@us.af.mil. We have our Gmail, we have our Facebook. I will add on to what Ree was saying in regards to events. So San Antonio, you could look out, there's a lot of events going on. I don't know if you guys knew, but San Antonio actually does the largest Martin Luther King Day march in the entire nation. I'm kind of upset I missed that this year because obviously it was just a virtual event. But they usually get about 300,000 attendees to do that every single year. So I thought that was kind of amazing because I would have never known that if I didn't look it up. And I'm talking to many coworkers, African American coworkers and friends. There's not a feel for an African American presence in regards to a community, a large community where you can find like-minded people or anything like that. Like I had this conversation with several coworkers, and they felt like they don't, like San Antonio is not their city to find that, basically. And so I will say that I have to search in Google, and I'm starting to find out that the communities out there. And so I would like to promote that on behalf of the DNI, that San Antonio does have that kind of community. You just kind of have to just kind of look for it. But I would love to do my part in promoting that and letting my coworkers know, hey, this is what's going on. And San Antonio is promoting a lot of events for Black History Month. Starting this weekend specifically, they have several events that are family friendly. Some of them are outdoors. Some of them are at the universities, the local universities. So like, for instance, they're having a step performance at Texas A&M in San Antonio. There's they're doing tributes for local Black trailblazers. Sometime at the end of the month, you can actually meet some of the Buffalo Soldiers that live in San Antonio. So there's a lot of things that San Antonio is doing for this month. So if you can go out there, if you Google, you will find it. And then what we'll do is we'll also post it on Facebook as far as the local events, because we don't want to keep it just within our small community on base. We would like to, you guys, if you can get out there and spread the word, and also just kind of promote San Antonio. And we can make this a bigger community for people to feel like that they are part of San Antonio, not just not feel excluded, basically. So, and once again, I didn't show video. I'm so sorry. So I just want to thank you all for coming. If anybody wants to stay on and discuss anything, by all means, we are here. Anybody have anything else to say? Our members at all, or anyone?
I was just going to share real quick that I didn't know if y'all knew we had an African American museum, but I certainly didn't. I thought that was pretty rad.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to throw that link in there in the chat real quick too, because I love finding new things that promote goodness, right? No matter who it's for. And I can 100% agree about that. This is not our place. There's like 3 soul food restaurants, I think, in the whole town. So when I found out that San Antonio hosted biggest Martin Luther King march in the country, I was like, really? Not Atlanta, right? But apparently in numbers, it is here. And I do find that to be very interesting. I personally don't do parades or marches just due to personal issues, but I love watching it every year. Yeah. So anyway, all right. Thank you, Sergeant McCarty. Appreciate that.
Thanks for sharing that info as well. I didn't know about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll I'll start putting some links, and we'll flood Facebook like crazy, because I want that out there. I would love, like, I personally want to take my kids to that museum. And I mean, I don't know if it's open right now. I'll find out. But if it is, like, I'm like, hey, let's go find out what's in our community. And you would think that because this is a Latin heavily community, I do love it. I absolutely do love it. But I do want to know more about the rest of diversity, not just my own. And that's how we grow as people. So
if I could tell you, it is open. They have this new exhibit premiere thing. I signed up. They are being cautious. So like, for example, you have to reserve a spot. So they have only so many people. I'm stoked. Like, I don't know, it's the little things, right?
Absolutely.
But they're premiering some type of space exhibit. I don't know, you know how my memory is, but it looks rad. So you can, and it's in the link that I put in there. the event. I'm sorry, I can't get my words right. I forget, it's over a couple of different days. I was going to try to grab it real quick, but there are too many things on here to find it. But the very last page in the Google Slides is all the resources. I just wanted to throw out there too that some of the things that we found, I know Hamilton kind of rocked the country. Finally, we all got to experience it over the summer thanks to Disney, and it's the best selling musical of all time, and just yada yada and so on. But the best part about it, in my opinion, was how not only it promoted children to want to learn about history, but there are just hundreds of videos out there of kids going like, look, mommy, he looks like me, or she looks like me, right? And being able to see themselves in something like that is really, really beautiful. So there's this whole Hamilton curriculum, if you will, that they put together for teachers to use and whatever. I forget the statistic, but it was insane, the rate of increase of reading in junior high students and desire to learn about history, all because of that musical.
Yeah, my daughter was one of them.
And so,
yeah, my 13-year-old.
yeah, exactly. So there's a whole framework on this this website. It's just beautiful. Things like that just make my heart so happy. So there we go. Thanks for coming, Major Harris. I just want to give you a shout out.
So yeah, thank you guys for those that could join us. Thank you for joining us, and always enjoy these conversations and these small events that we can try to put together to kind of bring us together. I hope if you come again next month, same time, same first Wednesday of the month, you bring somebody, brag us up, and just kind of promote us. That'd be great. We'll put more information out there. But yeah, I mean, this is it. If anybody wants to hang on, by all means. If not, this is the end of our meeting for today. And thank you again.
Hey, thanks, Sar Silva. Thank you, Reed. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Brian.